Okay, good morning, everybody. We're going to be doing a train the trainers for corporate, which might also benefit franchisees and managers. And this is just a rundown of the training material, how it's organized. We're going to do a couple examples, case studies of what it would look like for a new server and a new line cook. And then I'm going to go through our certified trainers program PowerPoint, which is a PowerPoint presentation that you guys can use if you're doing a certified trainers class or train the trainers class for your trainers in your store. And that's certainly adaptable. It's actually something we've had in place since 2019, and it just needs to be updated. So I just updated it for the most recent training material, and you can certainly adapt that to your store. So you should have a copy of the PowerPoint presentation already ready to go. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. So first thing I want to show you just really briefly how the training material has been organized and kind of the thought process that went into it on how it should be used, ideally, if at all possible, in the stores. So there's two different places that you can find the training material, and I'm going to flip back and forth between both because I don't know who's using what. But all the training material is found on SharePoint in the Dirty Buffalo subfolder, the green folder, under training and hourly training by function. Here it's split into back of house and front of house. The certified trainers program, which has the PowerPoint that I just referred to, as well as some additional materials for the trainers, and then a staff resources button that has some additional items that can be useful in all aspects of the training program that don't really pertain to one particular position. Let me go ahead and minimize this. And then we also have a Google Drive that Caitlin, our director of training, created. And here you can just go into the Dirty Buffalo stores. And it is broken down into manager training, position training, and it looks like Princess Anne has created their own little folder there. But under position training, it is just broken down into back of house, front of house, and brand awareness. And then we have the menu resources and test, as well as the safety and sanitation information that we go over during orientation. So it's broken down slightly differently in both places, but organized very similarly, so that you should be able to find what you need. So for every position that we have training for, which is every position in the restaurant. So we have a different training folder for host, food runner, carry out and delivery, server, and bartender, as well as dish, shake drop, pantry, grill, expo, and we're working on a sous training. For every position that we have, there are going to be specific written materials, and those written materials are going to be in the same categories for every single position. So for every single position, there is a training schedule, there is a trainer's guide or trainer guidebook, like this one right here, which is the host trainer book. There is a trainee book. There's going to be an on-the-floor training checklist, which is a checklist that the on-the-floor trainers should use. Because basically when you're doing training, the feedback that we've received is that the person that's the certified trainer, the one that's actually using the trainer workbook and sitting down and doing classroom training with the trainee, isn't always the same as the person that the trainee is going to be matched with on the floor. The person that the trainee is going to be matched with on the floor might be a brand new person or somebody that's only been there a couple of months, or somebody that might not have as in-depth of a training experience and might not be a certified trainer. So the training checklists are there so that we can provide that person who's going to be with them, matched with them on the floor, with a brief rundown of what the things are that they're supposed to cover during that on the floor training. So there's training checklists for every position, there's schedules for every position, there's an eval, a daily evaluation for every single position. So at the end of the training day, the person that was on the floor with them and a manager should be sitting down side by side with the trainee and spending 30 minutes eating a training meal, going through the evaluation and giving feedback to the trainee on how their day went. That happens every day of every training shift except for day one. The reason we don't do an evaluation on day one is because at that point, they're being inundated with so much information on the first day of training that it's really not fair to evaluate them at all. It's just, okay, you came, you showed up, you got the information, but we're not going to evaluate you until you actually start your on the floor training on day two. But there's an evaluation for every single day, for every single position. And then there's tests for every single position and a key for every single position. So that's the basics for every position. So again, there's going to be a schedule, a trainee book, a trainer book, a training checklist, a test, a key, and a set of evaluations. Then there's certain positions that have even more than that in these folders. So I want to make sure that you guys are aware that for some positions, for example, like food runner, there's videos that they're expected to watch. And of course, the video is not in here, even though I uploaded it the other day. But there's a back of house training presentation video that's supposed to be part of the food runner presentation. We're going to upload that right now. Part of the food runner training that it'll say in the training schedule when that is supposed to be played for the trainee. And then you just have to go into SharePoint or go into your position training folder on the Google Drive. Let's hope it's actually here. And show them that video. There it is. Okay, so if there is a video referred to in the training materials, you just need to go to the Google Drive or SharePoint, the folder for the training that you're doing, and you'll find that video ready to go and accessible, or should find that video ready to go and accessible in that folder. In certain positions, in addition to videos, there's skill outs, surveys, or practicals that the trainee is expected to complete. So one example of that is in carry out and delivery, for example. Not only are there videos in here, there's a phone etiquette video and a delivery and sanitation video that they're expected to watch. There's also this carry out phone survey that they're expected to complete. And I believe that's on their third or fourth day of training. They're supposed to be trained on the carry out combo menu. So that's in the folder as well for them to easily find the carry out combo menu. An example of a practical that they're expected to do would be in bartender or pantry. There's a practical for pantry as well, but in the bartender training, the bar test is actually a practical exam. So by practical exam, we mean they're not going to sit there and just write down their answers. Somebody's going to actually have them make the drinks, and then they're going to test the drinks and evaluate them for accuracy. I'll just give you an example. I'm going to open up one of these documents real quick. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going into the specific documents except for the case studies that we're going to do. Just because I want to honor your guys' time and I don't want to make this get dragged out. But so, for example, as a practical, the trainer must evaluate the following drinks for taste, appearance, correct garnishes, etc. Watch the trainee make the drink from start to finish without checking the recipe. So they have to make these 5 drinks. So that's an example of a practical exam. And there's one of those for pantry and grill as well. Any questions so far, guys? Okay, very good. So going back to how it's organized, what I think is the most useful document in all of these folders for every single position is the training schedule itself. So what I would recommend is anytime you hire anybody and you're going to be doing position training for that person, until you actually have these training materials completely memorized to the point where you know exactly what you need and how much you need and who you need for every single shift, start with the training schedule. That's going to be your planning document, what you're going to use to figure out what you need, who you need, how to plan, how to prepare for those training shifts. So let me give you an example of a training schedule. So actually, I'm going to go back to the front of the house and go back to host. So say you have a host that's going to be starting in a couple of days. They've had their orientation. So the first day that they're going to be doing is their front of house day one, and they're going to be proceeding from there. You can go into the training schedule, and you can find this in the beginning of the trainer's guide and the trainee's guide as well, but I'm going to recommend that you actually pull it as a separate document off of SharePoint and print one out, or have them printed and available at your store as one-sheeters, because the ones that are in the actual trainee guides and trainer guides don't have these fill in the blank spaces for assigning on the floor and classroom trainers. In addition, I just think it's useful to make sure you're looking at it each time, and just to have a single document right in front of you that you can easily reference to figure out everything you're going to need for this training experience. So that's why these schedules were created. That's why they were set up this way, is because it's meant to be a one-stop shop for the manager and for the trainer to see exactly how this training is going to play out, and everything that you're going to need for the next 4 to 6 days, depending on what position you're training for. So over here on the left-hand column, you're going to have your tools needed. So this is going to give you all of your written materials, all of your documents in-house, all of your electronic devices that you're going to need over the next 4 days to train your host. So the first thing you want to do is look at your tools needed and make sure you know where to find all of these things, and make sure you actually have copies of them. So again, we're talking about, you've got a host that's gone through orientation, you know that they're going to be starting training tomorrow. So you're going to want to take 30, 45 minutes of your time, ideally, if you can, to get this all planned out with your trainer in advance. And this is how you're going to do it. You're going to gather all your tools and make sure you have all of the necessary things beforehand. So you're going to make sure you have your host trainer's guide. Is the most up-to-date guide the one you have printed and available on site? Well, how do you know that? Let's take a look in the Google Drive and take a look at the host trainer's guide. Oh, this is what it looks like. Is this what I have printed on site? Yes, this is the host trainer manual revised 6/12/2021. So I have that document, check. Then you go back to your schedule. You want your day one checklist. Where do you find your day one checklist? Well, that's going to be in your day one materials under hourly training by function, front of house, brand awareness, day one. Day one training checklist. So make sure you have that printed out so that you can give that to whoever is going to be the classroom trainer for day one. If it's going to be you, then print it out for yourself, just so you have a reference guide there. I love checklists. You're going to see a lot of checklists in these materials, because I think that checklists are universally helpful in helping us remember exactly what is expected of us. So for me to convey what the expectations are for this training to you guys, I've created these checklists so that you don't really miss on anything when you're using the checklists. You're going to need all your food and drink menus to make sure you have printed menus or access to the QR codes. You're going to need your host on the floor training checklist. And just to point out that we are in the host training schedule right now, but we actually use the host OTF checklist and the food runner OTF checklist for day one of every front of house position, because every front of house position day one is exactly the same. So they all get exposed to host stand on day one, and they all get exposed to food running on day one. And the reason we did that is because we had a couple of people that were going through server training when we were dividing it up specifically by position, that weren't getting ever exposed to the host stand or really ever trained on our food on Expo. So we wanted to make sure that day one they're spent on those introductory utility positions so they get exposure to those things. So this box right here on tools needed for day one of training is going to look exactly the same whether you're in the host schedule, food runner schedule, server schedule, carryout schedule. It doesn't matter which front of house position you're training, this is going to look the same. So this is probably something you're going to memorize at some point if you're doing a lot of training, what you're going to need for day one. But I would recommend that you don't just gather your tools for day one, start gathering your tools for the entire week. You're going to want to set this up all in advance. And that's why we have these spots over here for you, because we're telling you that on day one of training, you're going to have 2 hours of classroom training that needs to get done, which means you need a classroom trainer to do those 2 hours of training if you're not going to do it yourself as a manager. So you should be looking at the schedule while looking at 7 shifts and saying, hey, who do I have that's a certified trainer that can spend 2 hours with this person on day 1? That person's name is going to go right here. Oh, by the way, they also have to do 2 hours of on the floor training at the host stand and 2 hours of on the floor training food running. So I need 4 total hours, a host and a food runner to do on the floor training. So when am I scheduling this person? Who's working the host stand that night? Who's working food running that night? Their names are going to go here. I mean, these are things you want to be thinking about, because if you don't have a host scheduled while you're doing a day 1 of host training, that's going to be an issue, because who are they going to do the on the floor training checklist with? Maybe you can pull one of your certified trainers aside, but is that person really going to have 2 hours to do it? So you want to plan all of this in advance. And then finally, in this last column on the right-hand side, it talks about skill outs, or what you're going to put in the trainee's file for that day. So all of the training is tracked. It is your responsibility as a manager to make sure that the files are complete and the training is tracked. And you're going to do that by either having your own training tracker on site, or the easiest thing is to just keep everything organized in the employee's file. So at the end of day 1, you're going to put their store tour, their commonly asked questions, their day 1 checklist, and their host and the food runner signed OTF checklist all in their file to show, hey, I've done all of these things that are referenced in day 1 for front of house training. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns about the training schedule? All right, sweet. So going back here, I also want to show you guys what I think is the second most helpful document in the training folders. And to me, that's the trainer guides. So the training checklist is the training schedule is what I would start with first. So anytime you have a new manager or a new trainee or new trainer, and you're trying to show them, what the training materials are about or what the training should look like, start first with the training checklist. It's just going to be your one-stop, or the training schedule, I'm sorry, that's going to be your one-stop shop for all of the things having to do with that particular position training. And then I would start walking them through the trainer manual. So again, if this is a new manager and they've never trained somebody on the host stand before, or it's a new trainer, a new classroom trainer, or they never trained somebody on the host stand before, get them the schedule and then get them the trainer manual, because this is going to be the second most helpful document to really guide them through in a quick, concise manner what the training is supposed to look like. So there's the training schedule. Once again, it looks a little bit different. It's a little more colorful, a little more pretty, but it's the same exact information of what I just showed you guys on the SharePoint. The only thing that it's missing is it doesn't have the blanks where you can fill in who's going to be the classroom trainer and who's going to be the on the floor trainer that day. So it's less of a planning document, more of just a little peek at what the training is going to look like. All right, so all of our training documents start with the Dirty Buffalo training philosophy, and this is to give our trainers background information on what we expect from them as at a minimum as a trainer. I mean, this is obviously not very in-depth, but if all else fails and you've got somebody that has not gone through the full quote unquote certified training process that you need to be a trainer at your restaurant, at least this gives them a little glimpse of the information they need about what we expect from them as a trainer. So it talks about our process of tell, show, assess, provide feedback, which I'll go into more depth when I show you guys the PowerPoint later today. And then it goes about the setup and organization of the training program. So it tells them that orientation is conducted the first day by a new team member, orientation is conducted the first day when the new team member comes to work and is led by the GM, the department manager, or the director of training. So it tells them orientation's already been done. During the orientation, the trainee has completed the onboarding, their new hire paperwork, they got a brand introduction and welcome sheet, and they receive that safety and sanitation workbook. So those things should already be done. And this information is being provided to the trainer so that the trainer or the manager can check in the folder to make sure that all of these things have already been completed. So they know at orientation, there should have already been a new hire checklist completed. The brand introduction should have been given to the trainee, so you could ask them, did you receive your welcome sheet and brand introduction? And did you receive your safety and sanitation standards? Also, by the time they start training, they should be aware of their uniform requirements, and they should be wearing the correct uniform at this point, because again, they've already been through orientation. It's their first day of training. They should have on the correct pants, shirt, non-slips, and any required PPE, such as a face mask. Once training is complete, the team member is giving a training schedule, which is what we were just talking about, that coordinates with the program requirements. So this is telling the trainer, hey, not only do we expect you guys to review the training schedule, but this training is designed so that the trainee is supposed to get a copy of the training schedule as well. So ideally, the trainee should know from that very first day of training who's going to be their classroom trainer for the rest of these 5 shifts, who is going to be their on the floor trainer for the rest of these 5 shifts. So if that document has been printed out and filled out, I don't know why I can't get back to the document, but you guys remember it. That document has been printed out and filled out, it should have the names of their trainers. So that's really setting everybody up with really good, it's showing that we're really professional and prepared for the training process. If you're a trainee and you're coming in and on day 1, you're getting this nice branded packet and you get a training schedule with the names of all the people you're going to be working with and a schedule of everything that's supposed to happen, that's really great, because you're like, these people are organized, these people are really invested in training me correctly. Even if it doesn't end up going according to plan, because when does anything ever go according to plan in the restaurant industry? Maybe 3 or 4 of the people you've got listed on the training schedule end up calling out and you have to switch it around. So what? At least you have a document at the beginning showing that you took the time to try to plan it to the best of your ability. And that's really showing the trainee that you've really invested your time in making sure that they get a great training experience. And if you have to adjust it and put a different name on there or move things around a little bit because you don't have, a host scheduled on day 1, then by all means do what you need to do to make the training happen, but at least show them that you took the time and put the effort in to try to get it right. So this is telling them that it's 5 shifts in total. You get an introductory shift and 4 follow shifts, followed by focused on execution at their assigned position. And each station follow day will conclude with a practical or a written exam and or an evaluation. So it's super important that you guys actually do the evaluations and the practicals and the exams. Well, one, because we're telling you guys that it's part of the training process and you want to make sure that you actually complete every part of the process. Nothing is in those training folders by accident. They're not things that are optional. They're not meant to be skipped over. They're not meant to be only, addressed when Stephanie points them out. They're meant to be in there because it's part of the entire training experience. And it's embarrassing when you've got a trainee that's reading that these things are going to be happening and then they never actually happen. I mean, most people aren't going to bother asking about it, but you got to be wondering, are they thinking in the back of their mind, hey, how much of this training is BS when it's telling me on the very first page that I'm going to get a practical or written exam and an evaluation, and then it never actually happens. So this is just informing the trainer to make sure the trainer knows that a manager has to sign off on training each day after completion of the necessary components. So our managers should be intimately involved in the training process, assigning the trainers that are going to be working with the trainees, and then following back up with them on a daily basis through the evaluations, and by placing those evaluations in the file to see how training is progressing. All right, I've been talking really fast, so I just want to take a quick break and make sure you guys don't have any questions. All right, guys, cool. I'm going to try to speed this up even a little bit more just so we can get into our case studies that I want to do. So continuing on, this first page again is just to inform the trainers of what our training philosophy is, what training is going to look like, And then it's going to break down day by day exactly what they are supposed to do as a trainer. So these are the expectations of you, trainer. Here's, again, all your tools and setup that you're going to need. So again, nothing is in here by accident. Even the 6 sauces that they're supposed to taste test on the first day are the same, regardless of position, and they're identified because Russ has informed us that these are the ones that he wants our trainees to try on their very first day. And then there's supposed to be sauce sampling every single day of training. I don't know if that's something that's currently getting done or it's been caught on to by the trainers, but as you can see, the sauce descriptions, five sauces with sauce description sheet is part of the tools and setup for every single day of training. And then it actually says, when they complete the day 2 evaluation with the trainee and review with manager, I'm sorry, that's not when they do it. It actually says right here during the classroom that when they taste the 5 sauces using the sauce description sheet, that's part of the classroom training each day of training. So there's a classroom component of training every day. There's an on the floor component of training every day. And during the classroom training is when they get exposed to our menu by tasting all of our sauces. By the time they're done with their training, if they get through 5 days, they should have tasted at least 26 sauces because they taste 6 on day 1. So that's not by accident either. That's part of the training program. So day 2 of host training, for example, this is telling the trainer that they need their seating chart test, that they have to please print a blank seating chart, that they need their store specific side worksheets, that they need their restroom check recording sheet. So there's really no excuse for people in our restaurants that have gone through the correct training to not be aware that these are the expectations of the host position. So if you guys as corporate or managers are walking into the restaurants and looking for your restroom check recording sheet and you're getting blank stares and everybody's looking at you like, what the heck is that? I didn't know that was something that we do at the Dirty Buffalo. Well, that's really disappointing because this is all part of the training program. There's no excuse that somebody shouldn't be trained on all of these things continuously because they've been incorporated into the training program for a reason. Okay, so again, most useful document is the training schedule, but if you want to get into a little bit more depth as you go through the expectations with your trainer, get out your trainer's guide. That's going to break it down in extreme detail, exactly what is expected of them as a trainer over the next several days. If you as a manager are not familiar with it, exactly what is in these trainers' guides, do so at your earliest convenience. Please learn them, read them. It is certainly expected that every single manager in our restaurants knows what is in the trainer, at least what is in the trainer materials for all of our positions, because you guys are verifying. You're supposed to be verifying that these things are getting done correctly. And how are you going to do that if you don't know what is actually expected of our trainers? So make sure you're familiar at least with the trainer manuals and those training schedules. Okay, questions? How are you guys doing? I just want to hear your voices. You guys hanging in there?
We're here.
All right.
Yo, what's up?
What's up? Okay. So the next thing we're going to do, how are we doing so far? You feel like we're getting useful information here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go through a case study and we're going to pretend we're training a new server and we're going to actually go through day 1 through 6 and what it's supposed to look like. I'm going to kind of breeze through it like I did with the host training, but I just want to give you at least one example. I don't know if we'll get to the line cook one, but I want to give you at least one example of, you know, one position where I'm walking you through every single day what it's supposed to look like. So we'll start with, we'll start with the line cook. We'll do the line cook one because I think you guys are probably more familiar with the server training because that's been around longer than you are the line cook one. So let's do that. All right. So you've got a new guy that you just hired to be a line cook at the Dirty Buffalo. What are you going to do? Well, first you've got to decide where he's going to be training first. Is he going to be training first in grill, or is he going to be training first in pantry? The way the training materials are set up is designed so that they go through pantry first. So it's going to be a lot easier to use these materials and use these materials to your benefit if you put your line cooks through pantry first. And that's not by accident either. Russ and I spoke about this. We talked about what's the most natural progression for a line cook in a learning experience. And the decision was made that it's easier to learn pantry before grill. So I know it's not always going to work out that way. You might not have somebody on pantry to train right away, and you might have to put somebody through the grill first. But I'm just saying that these training materials are going to be a lot easier to use. You're going to have to do a lot less maneuvering if you put them through pantry first. So that's how I'm going to show you how to do this. So you're going to look at your pantry training schedule. And I'm going to walk you through exactly what the training experience should look like for a line cook. So on their very first day, one thing that's different from back of house training and front of house training, by the way, is that in front of house training, I mentioned day one is the same regardless of position. That is not true for back of house training. Day one is similar for back of house training, but it's slightly different depending on whether they're going to be a dishwasher, they're going to be a shake drop cook, or they're going to be a pantry / grill cook. While all the positions have to take that back of house awareness module, there's going to be a different classroom that they go through on day one, depending on whether or not they are pantry / grill or shake / drop or dish. Okay. So here's your pantry training schedule. It has all your information in one place, but I'm actually going to pull up the trainer manual to get a little bit more detail, because I want to walk you guys through this in as much detail as possible. Okay, so this is what your pantry grill day one classroom looks like. It's 3 hours and 15 minutes long approximately. So if you're looking at your schedule, that's going to be noted for you. So you know that you need to schedule somebody or yourself as a manager for 3 hours and 15 minutes to be able to walk the trainee through all of the store. Yes, that's a lot of classroom training on day one, but it's a lot of necessary information that they need to get through. And a lot of it is actual on the floor training as well. So it's not just them sitting down and reading the entire 3 hours and 15 minutes. So let's walk through this. So first, for the first 30 minutes on the first day of pantry training, they're going to review the back of house brand awareness handout. At this point, you should be informing them that there's going to be an assessment on day 3, and that's universal throughout all positions. In every single position, just so there's no confusion, they always take the brand awareness test on day 3. Why don't they take it right after they learn the brand awareness module? Because we want them to actually retain the information and see what information they retain. So the brand awareness is not meant to be, here's your handout, read it, now take this assessment immediately after. It's read this, learn it, digest it, and then let them know they need to study and come back and take a test on it on day 3. Then they're going to get their store tour. This is just like with the front of house position training. You're expected to take 30 minutes to go through the store tour. It's not just hand them a little document and have them go on a scavenger hunt. It's you have the document in front of you, they have the document in front of them, and then you're walking them and showing them and checking off items as you go. Make sure you're actually showing them things that are relevant to their position. So if you're in the walk-in and you're with a host, you're showing them the ranch, the blue, the Southwest, or a server, I'm sorry, you're showing the ranch, the blue, and Southwest. If you're with a pantry cook, you're showing them where, some of the produce items are to prep, and so on and so forth. Then you're going to give them the pantry trainee packet, and you're going to spend 1.5 hours with them, having them first review that day one, and you're going to review it with the trainee. Okay, so this is how we expect our trainers to know what's in our training material. I know this has come up in the past where we hear from our managers, hey, our trainers don't even know what's in the training material because it's brand new. Well, there's really no excuse for that, because the trainer packets specifically say during the classroom training, the trainer is supposed to sit side by side with the trainee and read through the packet with them. So if you're a trainer, if you've done this 5, 6, 7 times with a trainee where you're reading through the packet with them during the classroom training, then there's really no reason for you not to know what's in the training materials. So anybody who's doing classroom training needs to be sitting down with the trainee, and that time needs to be blocked aside for them so that I can sit with them and actually go through the training material with them. And that way the trainee knows what's in it and the trainer knows what's in it. Then after they go through the trainee packet day 1, which is probably about 15, 20 minutes worth of reading, there shouldn't be any more than 15 to 20 minutes worth of reading per day. I know some of the trainee packets seem long. I'm pretty sure Pantry is the longest one at about 45 pages. But when you break that down into 5 days, it's only about 8 pages a day. 8 pages shouldn't take more than 20 minutes to read, even if you are reading it side by side with somebody else. So it's not meant to be an enormous amount of material. I know we're not talking about Einsteins here. We're not expecting them to retain everything they read, but certainly we want to come across as professional and making sure that we're giving everybody the information and what is expected of them, because that's the whole point of training. The whole point of having a great training program is making sure that we're informing these people that are coming onto our brand what we're going to be expecting of them over the next 3, 6, 9 months that they're going to be working with us. And it's not fair if we're not giving them those resources in advance. So we want to make sure that we're actually showing them and walking through them exactly what's in this written training material. Then after they go through the packet day 1, there's going to be a proper cuts and portioning classroom using the training guide attached. What do we mean training guide attached? Oh, here it is. Proper cuts and portioning classroom notes. So if you're a classroom trainer, you have your resource right here on how you're expected to conduct this proper cuts and portioning classroom. So again, this is something that Russ and I came up with intentionally to be part of the training program based on feedback that we got from our line cooks and from our managers, that this should be part of day 1, that they should be spending this time going through it and learning exactly how diced onions are supposed to be prepared, exactly how diced peppers are supposed to be prepared, so on and so forth. These are all the tools you're going to need. As a trainer, you certainly should be using your cut gloves. You should be using your recipe tablet. By the way, I hope you guys know that Margins Edge doesn't just have recipes in it. It has prep specs for every single one of these items. So it's not just when you go in and you need to look up how to make cheese sauce. If you don't know what the specifications are for how to cut up diced peppers, you can go into Margin Edge and look up the specs on diced peppers. Did somebody have a question? I'm sorry, I thought I heard somebody in the background. So you're going to want to have your recipe tablet. You're going to want to have your labels, your correct storage pans ready to go for this proper cuts and portioning classroom. And you should be thinking as a manager, who is it that you can really trust on your staff to conduct this? Because you want to make sure that whoever is teaching this course is actually knowledgeable on what our specifications are for each of these items. If you don't have anybody on your team to do it, then unfortunately, you're probably going to end up having to do it until you can get somebody trained up, ready to go. But I'm pretty sure that you can call up Simon any day of the week. Simon, I'm throwing you out there, but I'm pretty sure anybody could call you up and say, I need to have a proper cuts and portioning classroom done. I don't have anybody to do it. And I'm sure Simon would be willing to come into your store and do that.
No question.
No question.
Yes,
Look at that. All right, so that's 1.5 hours of day 1. Then you're going to do your food show, which is part of day 1 of training for every single position. That's when you break out your sauce description sheet and your trainees get to taste those 6 signature sauces and rubs that Russ really identified as the ones we want everybody to be exposed to on day 1. There's a little handout, a food show handout that they should have printed out ready to go for that food show. It just talks about diners, drive-ins, and dives and talks about what they're going to be eating. And then they're going to watch diners, drive-ins, and dives on SharePoint while they're eating. And then you have to look at that handout to find out what the menu is. If I remember correctly, it's a dirty chick and 5 wings. I think, Caitlin, correct me if I'm wrong on that. I'm sure you've done a bunch of these.
Yes.
Okay. And then your on the floor training on day one of pantry is going to be 1 hour where you take what you learned in your prep classroom and you're going to prep your veggies and you're going to pre-portion apps under the supervision of a sous chef or kitchen manager. So you really need somebody who is a qualified sous chef, or you're going to have to use your KM to supervise. I mean, they don't have to stand next to you for that exact hour, but at least show them how to pre-portion the apps. Use that process of telling, showing, and then having them do it, and then you provide feedback so that they're learning these things. Then at the end of the shift, you put the trainees' completed store tour and signed prep classroom with their names on them in their employee folders, clean up the classroom, and have a great shift. Okay, day 2. Okay, so now you're in day 2 of pantry, and hopefully your trainer has already looked through this trainer's guide and knows what's expected of them on day 2. Whether there's going to be a classroom, yes, there is going to be a classroom that's 1 hour long. What's that classroom going to be? Well, I'm going to sit side by side with the trainee. I'm going to read through day 2 of the packet. I'm going to remind the trainee to study for the brand quiz tomorrow, because remember that brand awareness test is always on day 3. And I'm also going to let them know that they're going to be opening, because the third shift of the pantry training is an opening shift. That's all listed on the schedule. See, it says right here. Actually, it's supposed to be a mid shift. So I don't know why it says, oh, wait. Yeah, it's supposed to be a mid shift on day 2. Then it's supposed to be an open on day 4. So I'm going to remind them that they're working a mid shift on day 3. That's a typo. Then we're going to review the certain food focus items. So for pantry training and grill training, there's food focus items every single day of the training except for day 1. So the food focus items for day 2 of training is all the sides. So they're going to get exposed to all the sides today, right here. And as we're going through this food focus, the classroom trainer is going to walk them through the Dirty Buffalo Gold Standard and how it applies to those items. So what are the proper portions for each ingredient? What does it mean to heat to the proper temp? What is the temp supposed to be for the hot sides, the cold sides? What's the color standard? For example, the home fries are supposed to be crispy golden brown. What does it mean to be seasoned properly? That's taste testing. So what should it actually taste like? What does it mean to be sauced properly? So if, how much cheese sauce is actually supposed to be in the mac and cheese, or, painting the wings or painting the wings when we're talking about saucing wings, not overcooking and presented properly on the plate. How should our sides be presented? So all of those things should be addressed for each item of food focus each day. Then they're going to taste 5 sauces using the sauce description sheet. And then they're going to spend 30 minutes at the end of their shift enjoying a shift meal while completing the day 2 evaluation. And I want to show you one of these evaluations real quick, because I think that these are the #1 things that are not being used currently as part of our training process, and they absolutely should be. So documents, training, hourly training by function, back of house, and we're talking about pantry right now. Pantry evaluations and practicals. So remember, there is no evaluation on day 1 because they're just getting inundated with information and they're not really doing anything that we can evaluate them on. But by day 2, we should be evaluating them. So for this evaluation, we have the trainee sign, the trainer sign, and a manager sign off on it. And you're going to go through and you're going to assess, did they show up in proper uniform? Were they 5 minutes early and ready to work? Did they have a positive attitude? Do they know how to cut their veggies? Well, they should, because they went through a proper cuts and portioning class yesterday. Do they understand labeling and dating and products? So on and so forth. So the trainer is going to rate them on a scale of 1 to 3 in all of these categories, put any notes here. And then while they eat their training meal and sit down with a manager, we're going to go over this. And this is how the manager is going to end up having that feedback on how the training experience went, even though the manager might not have been there side by side with the trainee for any portion of the day. So again, when you're doing your scheduling, of your trainers, make sure you're allotting that 30 minutes for them to get this evaluation at the end of their shift. If you can't do it at the end of the shift because you don't have a trainer scheduled or you don't have a manager that's going to be there, do it at the start of day 3. So just bump up the evaluation to the beginning of their next training shift. There should always be a manager present either at the end of the day or at the beginning of their next training shift. So you should be able to figure that out. And then, so the third day of training for pantry, and this also is present in grill as well, there is the day 3 practical. And that's when the sous chef or the kitchen manager is going to request the trainee to make 3 to 5 items, sides or appetizers, before leaving, and allowing for enough time for execution, discussion, and cleanup. So these are going to be comped meals. You don't have to wait for somebody to order them. It's something that the sous chef or kitchen manager is having them make, and they have to evaluate them in each of the areas of our gold standard. So by their 3rd day of training, they should be able to make sides or appetizers, because they're going to learn sides as their food focus on day 2, and their food focus on day 3 is right here, appetizers. So before leaving on day 3, they should be able to make appetizers and sides correctly. And that's what the sous chef or kitchen manager is evaluating them on. Notes are filled in here. So that's instead of well, actually, in addition to their evaluation from their on the floor trainer for day 3, they're going to complete their day 3 practical, and they're going to have another one of these on day 5, where the sous chef or manager is going to require them to produce dirty plates or salads, because the dirty plates and salads are the food focuses for plates and mac bowls is day 4, plates, mac bowls, day 5, and there should be salads on here as well. Let me see. Go back to my trainer document. Dirty plates is day 4, desserts and entree salads is day 5 for the trainer to focus on the food focus. So any questions on how the pantry training portion of line cook training is supposed to progress? Okay, I want to real quick also show you guys, and I know you've seen it, but just to kind of give you an idea of what I was thinking when I organized it that way, the pantry trainee manual. And all of the trainee manuals should be broken down in the same way that the trainer manuals are. So they're broken down by day so that the trainee can have his manual sitting in front of him, and the trainer can have her manual sitting in front of them, and they can compare side by side what day they're on, where the trainer has instructions of what they're supposed to be doing and the trainee has information about what they're learning, and it should all match up side by side. Taking a moment to load here. So for example, pantry day 1, it tells the trainee today you're going to focus on basic prep and knife skills needing for setting up our line. So again, that proper cuts and portioning classroom that we were just talking about. You're going to, by the end of the day, you should know where our recipes are stored. You should learn how to follow our prep recipes. You should master basic knife skills and standards for prepping our veggies. You should learn how to use the slicer. Understand par levels, learn when the truck gets delivered, so on and so forth. And then all of the information in the trainee manual for this day 1 should be related, or at least marginally related, to those things that they're learning in the classroom for that day. So it's setting up basic expectations of what a line cook should be doing. It's giving them their step-by-step daily procedures. So this is foundational information because it's day 1. It's talking about what we expect of our line cooks, using basic kitchen equipment and terminology. I mean, this is pretty, I don't know, for lack of a better word, pedestrian information, but the reason we're providing everybody this is because we don't know what experience they've had in the past, and we don't know what they've been exposed to in terms of a training program. So we're giving them all of the basics on this first day. And then wherever this little trainer icon is in the training materials, that's a notation of something they're supposed to be doing with their trainer. So this is giving the trainee an idea that the trainer is now going to demonstrate to them how to prep the following items. And this lines up exactly with that proper cuts and portioning classroom, just like this is lining up exactly with what they're supposed to be demonstrating on the slicer for the proper cuts and portioning classroom. And then at the end of day one, after they learn about prepping menu items correctly, what a daily prep sheet should look like, samples of a prep sheet, then they're going to get their food safety policy highlight. So for every day of training, there's a safety policy highlighted, and it's just general information for them, basically elaborating on and giving more detail than what's in our safety and sanitation document that they get in orientation, to remind them of the expectations that they need to follow with respect to food safety. So day one, it's just general sanitation information, what it means to properly wash their hands, how to fill the 3-compartment sink, safe cooking temperatures, all obviously very important information that they need. On day two, it gets a little bit more in depth. So today is when they're going to learn all the side dishes. Today is when they're going to learn about the Dirty Buffalo Gold Standard for the first time. Today is when they're going to go in and look at the Margin Edge recipes for the first time. Oh, and another point on Margin Edge. In addition to there not only being prep recipes and specs for all of the prepped items, there are recipes for every single one of our menu items. And I know that sounds weird because we're not in the habit of looking up a recipe when we go to cook French fries, for example. But when we're training somebody on how to cook French fries, we absolutely should be using the recipe. So there's an example of here, for example, diced tomatoes, how to train somebody on diced tomatoes, but here's a French fry recipe, for example. So somebody may never see this again after they train on pantry, and that's perfectly fine if that's the case, because they're going to be cooking French fries so often they don't need the recipe, but they absolutely should see it when they are going through the training, because they should know the exact amount of French fries that are going into each French fry portion, and the exact amount of spice, salt, and pepper, and the exact method of procedure for cooking them. So for every day of pantry training, whoever the classroom trainer is should absolutely have the Margin Edge tablet out, showing them for every single recipe what the expectations and the specs are. Cheat sheet on a cook sheet for pantry items. This is also when we talk about filtering the oil in the fryers, how to change the fryer oil, some tips on frying to TDB standards, some tips on managing waste. And then at the end of day 2 through 5 of pantry training, as well as day 1 through 4 of grill training, there's this portion in the training manual called Let's Get Cooking. And that's where it has a little trainer icon saying that the trainer is going to demonstrate to them using Margin Edge how to cook each of these items. And it has a list of exactly what they're supposed to go through. And again, I know that it's not always realistic to say, you know, we're going to make baked beans right now, or well, it's portioning baked beans, so that should be easy enough. But for example, say you're on day 5 and you've got to make a stuffed salad and nobody orders a stuffed salad. In my opinion, and you guys can interject if you feel differently, I think that it's worth the waste of product to take the time to show them how to make a stuffed salad correctly, even though nobody ordered it, just to make it and comp it or waste log it for that day. I'd rather have our trainees go through that process of learning how to make a stuffed salad properly than to just skip it all together because nobody ordered it. But you guys can tell me differently if you feel otherwise. I'm going to take that as a no. Okay. So continuing along with the training manual, the food safety highlight on day 2. I guess there was a couple questions, I guess, on some of these policies, like our food thermometer policy, how to calibrate thermometers, prep procedures, holding procedures. This is all stuff that's been in our training manuals since the beginning of time. it really shouldn't be something that people are not familiar with, that have actually been trained correctly on our staff, because it's not new. And it's basically just the policy that the Dirty Buffalo has to have per the local food regulations. So for example, when we apply for a health permit from the city of Virginia Beach or the city of Chesapeake for a new restaurant, we have to give them copies of these policies that our managers and our staff are required to follow. So we absolutely need to inform our staff of what these policies are. And this is how we inform them of them. So on day 2 of training, they get exposure to our food thermometers policy, our prep policy, our holding procedures policy, reheating procedures policy, and serving procedures policy. And it's basically like a crash course of food safety management. So whereas our line cooks are not going to have to go to like one of those serve safe managers courses that spends 8 hours going over all of this stuff, this is going to be their only exposure to that information. So the classroom trainer needs to be taking the time to actually walk them through these policies and explaining to them what they mean. All right, so I'm not going to go through pantry day 3 in as much depth, but again, it's an opening day. So they have the kitchen opening checklist by station. And then they have their cooking and their Dirty Buffalo Gold standards. And this is the day they're going to do it, their apps. The food safety policy is their allergy policy. Again, something so everybody actually has to be aware of. And for those of you that are not aware, our allergy policy is that any team member that is informed of a guest allergy must immediately inform the manager on duty and the chef and ensure we can prepare the dish according to the guest needs. So if somebody has an onion allergy, that should be something that the manager is informed of immediately. And then you follow these procedures. One thing I do want to point out is that there is a video on day 4 of pantry training called the Aloha Kitchen video. It shows them how to use the KDS system that's in all of our stores. So that is actually found in the Google Drive and on SharePoint. If I can get to it, I will show it to you. No, it is no longer there. So I will have to upload it once again. Aloha Kitchen. All right, well, it will be there by the time this video is being viewed by anybody. So there is a back of house kitchen training video for that. And I do want to say another point of reference is that if you guys are looking over the training schedules or looking for anything referenced in the training schedules and you can't find them, like what just happened, then please let us know. I mean, I imagine if anybody's been actually following the training schedule for the past however many months that this has been in here, it's been missing for quite some time. And the fact that nobody has gone to the, made a point to actually point out that it's missing makes me think that nobody's even reading the training guide. So let us know if you see something that's missing, and we'll make sure that we get it in there right away, because that is one of the major issues with SharePoint, is that anybody can delete things. So things just go missing sometimes, and we just have to upload them back again. It takes 2 seconds. We just need to know that they're missing. Okay. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do, well, actually, before I do that, I want to show you grill, because we were talking about a line cook. So after the trainee completes day 5 of pantry training, that's when they would move on to day 1 of grill training. And this is a little cheat sheet right here, this little grill and pantry training by day. It just gives you a breakdown of exactly how the menu is broken down. So pantry training, we talked about how they do all this prep on day 1. On day 2, they do all the sides. On day 3, they do all of the apps, so on and so forth. Well, for grill training, they start with mac and cheese and all the plates on day 1. because they've just done plates on day 5 of pantry training. So they're getting 2 straight days of doing plates. They're seeing it from the pantry and from the grill side. On day 2 of grill training, they get into the mac bowls. On day 3 of grill training, they get into the burgers and the sandwiches. And then on day 4, they're all done. At that point, they've made everything on the menu. So going back to hourly training by function, back of house, grill. This is where all the dirty plates training videos and the sub and Sammy training videos are. And it'll say in both the trainee manual and the trainer manual when those are supposed to be shown. This is also where you can find your grill recipes cheat sheet that Caitlin created. I hope this is the right one. Opening it up. I don't know if that's the right one or not. Caitlin, is this the one you created or is this the old one from?
No, it's not. That's the old one, I believe.
All right, we're gonna delete
That's
this.
it. Nope, get that out of there.
I'm gonna delete that. Is yours in the Google Drive?
Yes.
Okay.
It's under menu resources and tests.
Menu specs?
Yes, ma'am.
Aha, there it is. Okay, we're gonna download that and upload it right now into SharePoint. Okay. And I just want to show you that there's evaluations and practicals for grill as well. And it's also on day 3 and day 5, I believe. Let me just get them open. I've got too many things open on my computer right now. Aha, yeah, day 3 practical. So the sous chef or kitchen manager will request 3 to 5 items for the trainee to produce mac bowls or plates before leaving, allowing enough time for execution, discussion, and cleanup. So again, they should know how to make these things because they've already gone through them on day 2 and day 1 of their grill training. So at this point, they're ready to be evaluated on them. And then on day 5, they're going to be asked to make burger subs and Sammys. If you don't have time to do 3 to 5 items, you know, that's not the end of the world. I just want to make sure that these practicals are actually getting done so that at some point during the training process, both on the grill and on pantry, there is a manager actually making the trainee make at least one of these dishes and evaluating them on how they're doing it and providing that feedback in written format that's going to end up in the file on whether or not they're able to achieve and execute these standards. And then Caitlin and Simon have recently adapted this, just for your information. Ryan Russ, Cherish, that this is now going to be part of the manager practical as well, where they have to make not only these dishes, pantry and grill dishes, but wings as well, as part of their manager and training process. So that's all there. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns before I get into the certified trainer PowerPoint? Okay, you guys feel like that was informative? Like, did it give you a little bit more insight into kind of how everything was organized?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So now I'm going to really quickly breeze through this certified trainer training PowerPoint that you guys can use for your certified trainers class if you would like, or adapt it for use if you would like. If you need to find it, it should be right here. I hope this link works. Yay, there it is. Okay, so it's on SharePoint. I would just ask that if you're going to edit it in any way, shape, or form, save the edited version to your computer, not to SharePoint, so that there's not multiple versions of this lying around. Or send it to me if you feel like it's better and we could replace it. That's perfectly fine as well. Okay, so I'm going to run through this way faster than you would do it if you were actually teaching the class, but I want you guys to see what a certified trainer class would look like following our certified trainer program. So this is an actual course that we created in 2019 or 2018. I only think I did it twice. We only had 2 stores at the time. It was before we opened Princess Anne. And it was a course that every certified trainer was required to take before they could actually be a trainer in our store. And this was under our old training modules, but it still applies nonetheless. So what would happen is they would take this class, they would complete a module, which was basically a self-study program. And I'll show you what that looks like. It's on SharePoint as well. Let's see. Where they go through and they learn about what it means to train, what they learn about different types of learning styles, adult learning styles. Those of you that have worked at corporate restaurants in the past have probably seen something like this for trainers to learn from. I think I adapted it from One Chain's documents. It wasn't created from scratch. So this is the training others module that we have. Now I'll warn you, this has not been updated. This is out of date. So while a lot of this information is still relevant, some of it in the back where it talks about what our training program looks like is not accurate anymore. But this is what I mean by the module that they would have to take. So not only would they take the class, they'd go through this on their own time, and they'd learn about different learning, they'd get their learning style assessed, learn about different learning styles that other people might have, what it means to be a trainer. A lot of the information is redundant of what's in the PowerPoint presentation, but repetition creates habit. So that's why it's in there twice. And then at the end is where it needs to be updated. And maybe this is a task for Caitlin for another day to talk about what our training program, how our training program is organized and where to find stuff. So as you can see, the picture there is of the old back of house workbook, but I think this could pretty easily be updated and still be useful. So
Gotcha.
anyway, so that's the certified trainers program. It was supposed to be the course, the class, and then they take a practical at the end, and then they get their little herd leader certificate, which looks like, scroll through here, this, which goes into their file saying that they've been certified as a trainer. And the idea behind this is we could do this for our franchise stores as well. So we could walk into any franchise location, somebody's getting trained. Oh, is the person training them a herd leader? Had they been certified? Did they take this course? Do they know what it means to be a Dirty Buffalo trainer? So that's what that herd leader certification is all about. So that's how this course is designed. And after completing the course, the person's supposed to have all the tools and knowledge necessary to train new employees on our mission, history, and core values, our service standards, our operating procedures, our menu, our expectations, and how to grow with the Dirty Buffalo brand. So you start out, you give them a quick quiz, ask them what the mission is, our core values, what's our guest service matter, just a way to get the class to be actually engaging. Also ask, where is this information contained in our training materials? Do they know this is part of the brand awareness handout that gets handed out to everybody on day one? What does it mean to be a certified trainer? So you're going to ask the class, what do you think it means to become a certified trainer? What do you think the benefits are? And then, you can ask them leading questions like, having a well-trained staff means this, or people view certified trainers as. And this is also the time when you're going to want to review whatever the current compensation schedule is for certified trainers. So I can't keep track of it, honestly. I feel like it keeps changing. But we need to be able to keep our trainers informed of what pay rates they're entitled to if they're going to be doing this training. But also emphasize that's not the only benefit of being a trainer. I mean, I think it's super important to talk about how it adds to the team to have, for example, right here, we talk about training can impact guest satisfaction because a guest that experiences great service and food will become a return customer, and training produces team members who provide great service and food. So, it's pretty basic, but it walks them through and kind of gets them thinking about how and why training is really beneficial, not just because it can make them extra money, but in the long run, it benefits everybody by, reducing food costs, reducing labor costs, and so on and so forth. And I've tried to make it so that in this note section, if you're the person presenting this PowerPoint, you can just read through the notes section and that'll guide you through that slide. What's the role of the certified trainer? Here are a few simple points to consider as you start the program. You're going to want to continually display your enthusiasm for your job, have confidence, don't forget the humor, use your time wisely, so on and so forth. And then here's the process that I was just talking about. Let me make this a little bit bigger. So step one is that if you're going to be a certified trainer for any position, you have to have at least completed all of the training for that position. So Caitlin, you're going to want to make sure that if you're trying to verify if somebody's a certified trainer, not only should they have a herd leader certification in their file, but they should have the completed training from the entire training program in their file. They don't necessarily have to go through server training if they're going to be a host trainer, but they have to have gone through all the host training. Just like they don't have to go through line cook training if they're going to train on shake and drop, but they have to have gone through all the shake and drop training. Step two is to attend this course if it's available. Step three is to complete that training others module once that is available and required. Then the GM is going to sign off on their herd leader certification. Then the director of training is going to sign off on their herd leader certification. So once the GM feels like everything's in place, then the GM calls the director of training in and says, I would like this person to become a certified trainer. Director of training verifies in the file everything has been done. They sign off. And then we used to have, and we can order more if you guys like the idea, these little herd leader pins that were a little buffalo icon that everybody could have on their uniform and wear if they were a certified trainer. And it's just a little way to recognize that somebody has gone through this process, that they've been escalated to a new level in our company, and it gives them a way for everybody else to identify them as a trainer. So I don't know whether we still have those pins, but I think Ryan ordered them, so I feel like we could order more if we wanted to, or find something similar to it. Here's the course content overview. So this is just background information on what this course is all about. It talks about their available resources. It identifies the training staff. Where's the note section? So this is where you're going to want to show the trainers where to locate the materials on SharePoint and on the Google Drive, to introduce the trainers to the training staff and inform them who they should go to with questions or concerns. So for example, if the training schedule refers to a certain video, like that video that we just couldn't find, and they can't find it, who should they call? I would say Caitlin in that example, and Caitlin can make sure that she gets it up into the Google Drive or SharePoint as necessary. For a second example, if a recipe they are using to train has an ingredient or a measurement that conflicts with what they've been using in their store, who should they call? I would say Simon. So make sure you inform them not only of who their resources are, but who they should call for what different questions and what kind of questions they might have, so that they feel comfortable coming to you guys. Then make sure you walk through each of the training documentation with them, so they know there's trainer guides for every position, there's trainee guides for every position, the training schedules, the importance of the training schedules and what they're for, the on the floor trainer checklists and how they're supposed to be used, the evals and skill outs, how they're supposed to be used, the videos and where to find them, and then of course the tests and the answer keys and when those tests are supposed to be conducted. Then you go through the training basics and it talks about what makes a good trainer. Then you're going to ask the group, think back to teachers, trainers, mentors, and authority figures that have made an impact on your life. What are some of the characteristics that they shared? So this gets everybody kind of thinking about what it means to be a great trainer and great training experiences they had and how they can carry forth those experiences into their training for the Dirty Buffalo. Talks about when to train. And then, this is a really important point of emphasis here, that when someone is hired, it often means you're very short-staffed. And there is a huge pull and tendency to want to skip the training process as much as possible to get this person on the job. And honestly, I think that's the worst possible thing you can do, because if you're not training somebody thoroughly up front, you're setting them up to fail, and you're setting them up to have bad habits, which they're then going to spread to other people. And then those bad habits basically take over all of the things that you've been trying to teach everybody and replace the training program in full. And I think that's pretty much what has happened to our business over the past 2.5 years, is that we've gone from having this robust training program that talks about exactly what we want everybody to do for our brand standards, but we've been skipping it for the most part as much as possible because we're constantly short-staffed. And now we've gotten to the point where we've got a staff that really doesn't even know what our basic brand standards are. So I'd like to try to get back to the point where everybody is actually going through the proper training. We've got our five-step training method here: plan, tell, show, do, review. To provide effective on-the-job training, you must follow the proven training schedule. At TDB, we use a 5-step method of training for all training situations, including new hire training, training existing team members on new procedures, or for retraining existing team members who are not performing according to our standards. We look at each of the following 5 steps in detail in this section. Sorry, I rushed through creating this yesterday, hence all the typos. Talks about SMART goals. Don't know if you guys are familiar with these, but it's a pretty common term where SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely goals. It's just a way to get people more focused on creating things that are achievable. And this talks about the importance of planning for successful training. You could talk about the training schedule and how it's used as a training tool. This is also a good time to ask the class, how do you define a successful training experience? What would a SMART goal be for you in this scenario? At a minimum, proper planning you should be thinking about who you're training, what do they already know, when are you training, why is the training taking place, how long do you have to train, how much time do you have to train, what is the expected outcome? You should know all of these things going into it, because otherwise we're not setting you as a trainer up for success if we're not telling you the answer to all of these questions. There's a lot of specific places in this PowerPoint where it talks about the training materials. And the reason that is because I want everybody to be super familiar with what the training materials are by the time they're done with this class. So ideally, somebody who's taking this class should have already gone through our training and seen all these things. But just in case they had one of those trainers that was more akin to skipping over things than going through things in detail, this is re-exposing them to what the training materials are supposed to look like. So again, training schedule, trainer's guide, eval, and practicals. Make sure they know that the menus and study guide are also tools for their use. Margin Edge, Aloha. I don't know if you guys are aware, but Aloha, the KDS system, is set up so that you should be able to press on any menu item and it should pull up the recipe on the screen as well as a picture. So Aloha can certainly be used as a training guide as well. What else do we have? The second step is, after you plan, is to paint a picture of what's going to happen, tell the trainee why it's important to you, tell them why it's important to them, go over the job description and expectations, provide a big picture, and keep it short and to the point. And so this PowerPoint presentation gives you an opportunity to practice or have them practice doing that. So you can call on somebody in the class and ask that person in the group to explain our 80-20 policy using the TELL method from the previous slide. So give them an opportunity to explain what the 80-20 policy is, why it's important to us as a company, why it's important to them, and how it helps them achieve their job description. Do the same thing with sorting uglies and have a call in a back of house team member and have them walk you through that. So it gives them a chance to actually practice how we want them to do the training, where it's not just, hey, go read this book. It's telling them about the big picture. Showing them the task one step at a time, showing them the right way, and showing them in a way that welcomes questions. So you're going to walk through the class with telling them that they should break up tasks into small manageable pieces and be sure that the trainee understands each step before moving on to the next step. Remember that bad habits are learned. Always ask if they have questions, prompt them with specific questions if they don't ask on their own. During the class, this might be a time when you want to ask a volunteer to show you how to properly clean a table, and you can, walk them through the correct way of showing how to properly clean a table, step by step, and showing them the right way and welcoming questions. After you show, you have the trainee do it. Watch closely, provide immediate feedback on performance, encourage the use of the training materials. So if you've got the recipe tablet right in front of you, have them use the recipe tablet while they're making that dish. Stop them if they do it wrong, and then show them again if necessary. Ask them to explain why they are doing it, what they are doing as they are doing it. So that not only do they have to verbally express what they're doing, but they're doing it physically in front of you at the same time. And then after they do it, that's when you're going to review it with them. You're going to go over the key points. You're going to give them positive feedback as much as possible. Make sure they know where to find information. Ask them what they disliked about the process, what they liked about the process. Ask for more questions, and then checking back later. That's the importance of that eval that you guys are completing at the end of every shift. That's really when you're going to circle back with them after they've done everything for that shift and say, how did it go? Here's how you did. And that's also how you're going to give your feedback. Remember the PIES acronym. Feedback should be positive, immediate, earned, and specific. Positive means you make sure the trainee knows that they did something right by speaking to them in an upbeat and happy tone. Immediate means you're going to try to give the feedback as soon as possible after the action is completed. Earned, you only give positive feedback when it's actually earned. Don't make stuff up. And specific, this is the most important one. Don't just say good job or something generic. You want to praise specific effort and specific characteristics. So for example, you really took the time to scrape out the bottom of that pot of cheese sauce. This really helps us reduce waste and keeps food costs low. You always want to provide feedback for improvement if they did something incorrectly. Explain the impact on the restaurant and the guest if they did something wrong. Ask for suggestions on how to improve or correct their performance. So ask them, how do you learn? How do you like learning? Or, if they keep screwing something up, ask them for suggestions on a better way of teaching them the information. Express confidence in their ability to get it right. And only if the problem persists, then just get a manager involved and let them know that this person is really just not being able to achieve our standards. Here's a discussion for the class. Give an example of something you're good at and how would you teach somebody else to do it? Does it follow the basics of our training methodology, and how? And then this is where you get into, at the end, just a quick overview of our training program, basic training rules, expectations of a trainer, course content. Starts with onboarding, which usually happens immediately after the interview, goes to orientation, then it goes into the workbook and module training, and then there's the daily evaluation with the trainer. Here's all the different position training modules that we have. This might be another time that you can go into SharePoint or the Google Drive and walk them through the positions a little bit, or walk them through the materials a little bit. Explain that the materials for each position are not cumulative. They used to be. It used to be that everybody had to do each one. Now they're not. The only exception is that bartenders have to complete a full server training before they start the bartender training. And then for back of house, the only exception is that line cooks have to complete pantry before going on to grill whenever possible. Training checklists. You're going to use those in conjunction with the trainer's guide as a map for training each position. The checklist hit on major points of emphasis for each station, and the checklist also help guide the trainee and prepare them for the evaluation at the end of their shift. Here is a list of all of the videos that should be on SharePoint and the Google Drive as part of the training process. So for front of house, we have the founders video, which is played during orientation, diners, drive-ins, and dives, which is played on day one, the presentation video, which is played during food running, delivery and sanitation and food etiquette, which come during carryout, and then ale versus lager, and the perfect beer pour, which are bartender videos. The back of house, we do the founders video during orientation, diners, drive-ins, and dives on day one. Dish room A and B for dish, frying wings, back of house FIFO, ugly ducks, and wing tossing for shake and drop. And then all the dirty plate videos and burger and Sammy videos for the back of house during line cook training. Here are all the skill outs and evals listed. It reminds everybody that each position has daily evals and a test, that there is a practical for pantry and grill to be completed by the KM or the executive chef, that there is a practical for bartenders to be completed by the service manager or the general manager. There is a phone survey for carryout and a server skill out for servers to be completed by a manager. Tests are meant to be taken after the trainee has gone through the first 4 steps of training: plan, tell, show, do, without the assistance of the book. You can print the test off SharePoint or the Google Drive, and the GM must review the trainee's completed eval skill outs and tests. Here's a training tracking sheet. You can develop one of these to track trainees' history and record it in their file, or you can just keep all of their evals, their schedule, their skills, practicals, and tests in their files. Remember, the schedule for each position specifically says on each day what goes in their file at the end of the day. And then the director of training, eventually, as we get everybody more familiar with the expectations of the training program, will be going in and auditing the files periodically. And then finally, becoming a certified trainer, the process is that you have to have completed all the modules for the positions that you're going to train for. You're going to be issued a trainer's guide, and you're going to have taken and passed all of the assessments for that position. You must complete the training others modules once that's available, including the quiz at the end. Attend the certified trainer course, this course, if it's available, and then you get your herd leader certificate issued by the GM and signed off on by the director of training. So that's the certified trainer program in a nutshell. Okay, I am out of breath. Somebody else talk, please.
Hello,
Hello.
what are you doing?
I'm gonna close out this stuff. Okay, do you guys have stuff that you can add to, before I turn off the video portion of it, do you have anything that you can add to the learning portion of this video? Anything that I might have skipped over, important points I might have missed?
I think so.
I don't.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm gonna stop recording then. In that part.